We use this one. Sounds a little different than the other one. Is everybody doing good? All right. Just a reminder to turn your cell phones off or put them on. Meditate. So we'll start out, actually jump right in here. We'll start out with a few minutes of meditation. Is there anybody else that's new here tonight, first night? Okay, hey, welcome. There's 5 weeks altogether, so it'll be 4 weeks for you guys. And what we try to do is, if you can, commit to coming to all of them. Because those of you that came the last time, you notice there's less people here tonight. We kind of mentioned the fact that that would happen, but you know, if you make that commitment to kind of do it, you can begin to establish some habits with this, and that's really important, because otherwise it may end up being just kind of a neat thing that you did sometime a few years ago, and and then when you're under stress, you'll say, you know, I wish I had done that. Maybe it's time to start doing it again. And the thing about meditation is you want to do it when you're feeling pretty good, because it kind of gives you something to go to when things aren't so good. If you start when you're under stress, you haven't built up some of that resiliency that you're trying to work for. So, you know, try to get in the habit of doing it on a regular basis. So for those of you that are new to this, what we'll do is we'll start out with just a few minutes of, we count our breath. There's a couple of different types of meditation. I'll talk more about that again in a few minutes, but we'll start out by just counting our breath. And what you are trying to accomplish is just stay focused on your breathing. Every time you breathe in and out, that would be 1, in and out 2, and try to count as high as you can get. If you get to 21, you can start back again at 1. If you lose count or find that your mind's drifted off, just gently pull it back to the breathing and start again at 1, and just try to stay focused on your breath. And don't be frustrated when you can't do it, okay? So that's the whole thing, is be gentle with yourself. So we'll do this for a few minutes. I want you to take a few big breaths in. We had talked about, I guess I'll review this too, there's a 7 points that we want to mention for your posture. If you're sitting on the floor, you know, where your hind end touches the ground. I find it best, personally, to sit where up towards the front of the zafu, and that allows my knees to kind of fall down a little bit and helps me keep my spine straight. But you know, whatever's comfortable for you, you can cross your legs, that's great. And then for those of you in a chair, just your feet will be flat on the ground, okay? And then try to keep your back straight like a stack of coins. If you're sitting in a chair, try not to lean against the back of the chair. You may have to actually kind of sit up a little bit in order to accomplish that. Your hands can be just comfortable in your lap. Buddha back here has got his right hand in his left hand with his thumb touching, which is kind of our traditional mudra, but you can do whatever is comfortable for you. Imagine there's a string at the top of your head, kind of pulling the crown of your head up a little bit, and your jaw kind of drops down a little. And then your eyes are closed, or you know, if you're a little sleepy, you can keep them open just a little bit. And then your tongue rests at the roof of your mouth behind your front teeth. And then just take a few big breaths in and out. Kind of allow yourself, your mind, to just let go of anything that's going on outside, or any thoughts that you may be thinking about. And then just start counting your breaths. And again, gently pull your mind back if it drifts. If your mind has wandered off, just gently pull it back to the breath. Now I want you to kind of loosen your concentration a bit, and we're going to move to just bare attention meditation. So rather than trying to focus on your breath, allow your mind to just kind of expand and be aware of the breath. You can either feel the breathing or feel your breath as it comes into your nose, kind of cool, and as you exhale, kind of warm. Or maybe on your abdomen rising and falling. But again, we're just going to be kind of bare awareness rather than focused. We'll do that for a few minutes. If a thought or an emotion arises, just let it go. Just notice it and let it go. Okay. With the counting meditation, were you able to kind of stay focused on it, or did your mind kind of drift off a little bit? You have to kind of pull it back. Yeah. So how are those two different?
You're thinking in the first one, because you're counting.
Okay. I guess we got it. I'm sorry. I'm not good about it.
And then in the second one, I guess it's more of a concentration on the breath instead of, counting.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I felt like the mind was more active in the first one
All right.
than in the second one.
Okay. Good.
But it was easier for the mind to wander in the second one.
Okay. All right. Did y'all find that to be true? Anybody else have a feeling on how those two were different? Any thoughts about that? Yes, ma'am.
For some reason, I could hear my heartbeat. I couldn't hear my breath, the breathing, but my heart was beating.
Okay, that was during the second half of that?
Second half.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so the first one, the concentration one, you're actually focused on something, right? You're trying to focus on something. With the mindfulness one, you're just kind of being aware. It's kind of a broader viewpoint, So it's easier to be aware of things like your heart beating. You're just kind of riding your breath or just kind of feeling your breath kind of going in and out. So they serve a little different purpose, but they are complementary. They kind of work well. Either way, the idea is that you can control what your mind is doing. And the purpose, again, on the counting one, is not to, eventually it'll be how long can I stay focused on one thing, but when we're beginning, the idea is to recognize when your mind has wandered off of its task and to kind of pull it back to the task of mundane, boring task of just counting your breathing, right? So you're trying to build up that ability to focus on something. And that'll serve you quite well as we kind of do some of the analytical meditations where we actually analyze things and then we're able to kind of maintain our focus on that and really kind of drill down on some of the things that, we kind of define as reality to see if maybe we've got some misconceptions about that. The mindfulness one is kind of just more of an expansive awareness that you're trying to build. And that's when you use them both. There's a lot of talk now about mindfulness practice, and so you'll read a lot about that. And that's just a lot of just being aware of the present moment, which is what we're kind of trying to do with that second meditation. But you use focus meditation too. We use that where we try to focus on something, a problem. I was thinking about, I'd gotten, and I might have mentioned, I apologize if I repeat some of my stories, but I got a flu vaccine or some vaccine not too long ago, I guess it was, for a trip I was going to take. And I knew it was coming, so what I do is I watch myself, I focus my mind on something other than that. And I can intentionally hold my mind on something other than that shot for as long as it takes for them to give me that shot. But I've trained my mind to do that, and we probably all do that to some degree. We've got a little bit of control over what we do, but then pretty quickly the chatter and the other stuff just kind of starts filling back in and starts filling in the storytelling and yada yada yada. We're kind of back to where we are. So again, the purpose of this is to begin to kind of gain control over our minds, and then we'll talk more about how that can benefit us by letting go of some of the things that don't serve us they're not good for us, and begin developing some of the habits of thought that are good for us, okay, are better for us. So, anybody have any questions about that first exercise? It was pretty short, but probably might have felt like a long time. I don't know. What did it feel like? Half an hour. It's only a few minutes. As you practice it, you'll be able to do it longer and longer, and it becomes a lot more enjoyable. I think we like our stories. We really kind of are attached to our stories that we tell ourselves, and so we're looking, you know, that little guy in our head's always looking for something shiny to grab a hold of and kind of begin chattering or making a story or whatever. So, all right, for those of you that were here last week, you had homework in terms of doing this for a few minutes. How did that work? Anybody have any success stories or failures, or didn't go so well? Did go pretty well? Everybody have a chance to practice? Yes, she'll give you a microphone.
Well, I guess I just tried to use the counting because that seemed to help a lot more to keep me focused.
Okay.
But I noticed I'm a lot more focused here than I am at home.
Oh, yeah? Yeah.
So I guess I just have to try to get used to doing it at home, and things draw me away. So,
right.
oh, I need to go do that. I need to do this, or I have to put that on my list. Or
Yeah.
But when I'm here, at least last week, it was easier to concentrate. So.
Well, you know, you come here with the intention of doing this, right? And so you're probably a little bit more motivated to participate if you kind of have made the effort to get here, you know. So that's something to rejoice about, be happy about. And I think, to your point, when people do retreats, you know, they go somewhere. I struggle with that now because my wife and I both practice, and it's only the two of us in the house. And so we want to do some retreats at home, you know. But you're at home, and then you start thinking, well, I got to do the wash, I got to do the lawnmower, you know, there's stuff that you have to do. So if I go somewhere, it's easier to let go of that. But that's our practice, though, is to be able to sit there and ignore all that stuff that needs to get done, as if we had gone somewhere, you know. So I don't know if it'll work or not, but yes, ma'am.
I practiced the body scan one.
Oh, good.
When I had some time at work, and I think it was over lunch break, but I had to set my timer on my phone so that it would go off, so I wasn't, you know, anxious about, you know, missing my next patient or something like that.
Oh, good,
So,
yeah.
that worked pretty well, but.
Okay. How much time did you get between?
I think I set my timer for about 6 minutes because I tend to lose focus really easily, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
That works out well. And, you know, the apps on the phones now, they have little ones that make this kind of noise, you know. They have little timer bells that you can use, meditation bells that work quite well. So take advantage of the technology. So. Anybody else have any experiences from the last week? Any problems that they're having? Okay. We'll move along then. So what is the mind? That's an easy question. Come on, we should be done with this in just a couple of minutes. I can say what it's not. It's not the brain. All right? Everybody in here's got one. You know, we hope. So, and this is from the literature. The Buddhist literature will talk that it's in the essence of clear and knowing. Okay, so some people will talk in terms of it being awareness. One way to be looking at it. Okay, and again, it's not the brain. The mind and the body aren't the same, but they're connected. They function well together. We can observe our thoughts and emotions and things. We've been doing that just in some of these simple meditations. So we're clearly not those thoughts and emotions, you know, if we can be the observer of them. So that'll be your homework for next week. You need to come back and answer that question. Dig into it. It is the source of all of our happiness and suffering. You know, the mind is. It's how we interpret things that cause that happiness or that suffering. And it can be changed. It's impermanent. So we can change our minds. We began controlling them now, right? That's the kind of the first step, is to first recognize there's, you know, my mind is controlling. I can begin controlling my thoughts and emotions, or at least letting go of them if I want to for a brief period of time. Because they normally take control of us, you know. And a lot of it has to do with, I know we've talked about this a little bit the last time, it's how we interpret things that are going on around us. You know, a lot of things don't necessarily have the goodness or the badness inherent in that thing. It's our interpretation of that thing that makes it so, you know. Broccoli, mushrooms, and beets. You know, some people love them, some people hate them, but it's not the like and the dislike isn't built into those products, right? It's all my interpretation of it. I was thinking about this now that we got this pending hurricane, and I'm thinking about lack of power and taking cold showers and all that kind of good stuff. But 98-degree water, you know, if it's tepid, right, lukewarm water. If I was standing next to a swimming pool on a hot day and I jumped into the pool and it was 98 degrees, it would feel kind of miserable, wouldn't it? Kind of warm. If I got that same day, I went home and I got in the shower and I stood in there, it was 98 degrees, it would feel kind of miserable because it was cold, you know? The same 98 degrees. So my mind has kind of set myself up for these expectations. And then I kind of try to make the world fit into my expectations of what is supposed to be good and bad, you know. So by practicing this, what we can do is we're going to try to retrain a lot of our thought processes and be okay with 98 degrees maybe, you know, begin to realize that that's just my perception of it. And letting go, ideally letting go of the things that are causing us what they call suffering, right? Which would be anger, jealousy, hatred, envy, a lot of those negative kind of emotions that arise. I think we talked last week about if somebody cuts me off in traffic, you know, our minds have a tendency to just go to the negative, that, you know, that person has planned that all day, or, you know, whatever it is. And you know, that's how road rage comes about. But, you know, I don't know that person's story. I don't know why they cut me off. I just tend to make that up. I've cut people off before, and it wasn't intentional. It was usually because I was being mindless. You know, I wasn't thinking about what I was doing. But I don't give the other person that same leeway. You know, I have a story that I attach to that. So we can begin changing those stories. But the first step of that is recognizing that we're making up a story about something that we assume to be true, but it's not necessarily, you know. And even if it is true, we can still make up a different story, you know. It's within our power to do that. But that's a retraining process that we have to kind of go through. Let's do another short meditation. This is one of them. Did anybody have any questions or anything? I'm sorry, I mean comments? All right, this is one of the ones, again, one of the handouts. It's called Mind Like the Sky. There's two of them, Mind Like the Ocean and Mind Like the Sky. And we'll kind of do this one, Mind Like the Sky. So what I want you to do is, you know, get in the 7-point posture. So notice how you're sitting, feet flat on the floor if you're sitting in a chair, back straight, hands comfortable, top of your head up, chin down, eyes closed, and tongue at the roof of your mouth. And we're going to take a few breaths in and out, and I'm going to talk through this one. So I want you to start by kind of allowing your mind to expand, bare attention kind of meditation. And recognize that you're doing this in order to become a better person and train your mind. So once you gain a deeper level of concentration and focus, loosen your concentration slightly. Emphasize the element of mindfulness in your meditation a little more strongly. Allow your mind to be attentive and observant of whatever comes to notice, regardless of what it is. And try not to identify with the mental elements that arise. Simply observe them like a tourist. Allow them to arise as you observe them and pass away without getting involved. Just be aware. Now allow your mindful attention to expand, to encompass your entire sphere of experience and consciousness. Forget that there is an observer and something being observed. Simply imagine your experience, your consciousness, as being just like the sky. Completely clear, vast, spacious, without end. Concentrate on this experience. Identify with it. Clarity, spaciousness, and awareness. Our minds are completely clear, just like the sky is completely clear. The light of the sun shines down on us through the clear sky. Our awareness and wisdom shines through the clarity of our minds. Sometimes clouds fill the sky and obscure the sunshine, but the sky doesn't get upset. The sky doesn't lose identity with the clouds. The sky doesn't judge. The clouds just pass through the spaciousness of the sky. They come and they go. The clarity and spaciousness of the sky isn't compromised by the clouds. They just arise and pass. Our minds are clear and aware, spacious like the sky. When a thought or emotion, an idea or an image, or a sensation arises in your mind, just observe it. Let it arise and let it pass. Each thought, each mental event, just like a cloud. Your mind, the sky. Concentrate on that experience of space and comfort and bliss. Whenever we identify with and are carried away uncontrollably by a thought or a feeling, we lose any awareness of the spacious clarity of our mind, of the vast, clear, and knowing nature of the mind, within which each thought or feeling occurs. our perspective becomes small and constricted. It's as if all there are clouds. We've lost the sky. We lose that wonderful open spaciousness. When we can simply observe these thoughts and feelings arise without getting involved, when we can identify with the sky instead of the clouds, then we begin to reside in the spacious purity of our basic, clear mind. Calm, clear, peaceful, open, spacious. Without agitation, without delusions, without anxiety and distress, without dissatisfaction and attachments and aversions. Anybody have any thoughts on that one? You want to share? That train's a bit disturbing to kind of battle with that in your head, right? That's a train that runs right outside the center. Yeah, I think he backed up 3 or 4 times. It sounded like he's going back and forth out there. I think they.
Think about what it was.
Yeah, yeah. But you know, your mind goes there, right? You hear noise and you kind of start thinking what it is. Yeah.
That's what I heard, the dark clouds.
Okay. Could you let go of them?
They kind of let go of themselves.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. At some point, I mean, so we practice with things that are easy to start with, you know, and you work your way up to things like that, you know, the leaf blower, the lawnmower outside, or whatever it is, you know. But you start out with these little irritations, the little thing buzzing around, you know. See if you can get your mind pulled back from that. Any thoughts about that meditation? Were you able to do that? Visualize your mind like the sky? Thoughts like the clouds? Okay. There's another one in that you'll get the handout, Mind Like the Ocean, which is nice too. So instead of picturing your mind like the sky, you picture it vast like the ocean. And you know, fish and things that are swimming around, all of the waves on the surface of the ocean, but as you go down deeper, there'll be things that are kind of swimming around, and you kind of let go of those too. Sometimes I imagine myself standing in front of those, you know, one of those big aquariums where you can go kind of down, and you know, the whole glass is in front of you, and picture your mind like the water itself, with everything swimming around in there, just the thoughts and emotions and images that kind of pop up, and see if you can just kind of observe those again without getting caught up in them. And don't identify with them, but you're just observing them and seeing them kind of float around there. And you'll get better and better at being able to do that. So, all right. Any thoughts or issues or questions? Is it clear why we're doing this? Why we are meditating, or why you are meditating? Right? And we all might have different reasons for doing that, but. You know, it's something that you have to practice and work at, and again, it'll become easier and easier the more you keep kind of working at it on a regular basis. If you're just starting out with a meditation practice, start out with just a few minutes, and then see if you can kind of expand it. You know, most people have time for, I don't know, pick a length. 2 minutes, 3 minutes. It doesn't take very long. What did you do? 6 minutes, you said, for your body scan? Okay. 6 minutes, you know. We waste 6 minutes on a lot of things. So it's just, you know, it's an opportunity. And what you're battling against is that mind thinking, I've got things I have to do. I don't have time to just sit here and breathe. I've got things that have to get done, you know. And that'll change the more you kind of work with this. You realize that really the things that you have to get done are just the things you do in between the time when you're meditating. You know? And that, yeah, you'll start to see some real benefit to actually developing some kind of regular practice. I might have mentioned last time, try to find an area at home that's that you can kind of designate specifically for it is always good. You know, as over the next few weeks, you know, we can talk a little bit more about, you don't have to have an ultra elaborate like what we got back here, but you know, you might start having pictures of things that, you know, people or pets or, you know, the Dalai Lama or Mother Teresa or somebody, you know, that you might feel comfortable with sitting and having and sitting there with you, sharing that space with you, to kind of get your mind in the right state of mind. And play around with different times of day. You know, find what works best for you. I think most people do pretty well in the morning, but you know, if you want to do morning and evening or morning and afternoon, that's fine, or however you want to do it. And it doesn't have to be long, just real short. So the purpose, again, is to kind of begin working on some of the delusions that we have and that we generate. So we kind of have this propensity, and they'll talk about habits of mind. You know, anger is a good one. And we do work in prisons, and you know, I see a lot of folks in there that have been, they're incarcerated because they couldn't control their anger, really is what it boils down to. If you think about, this is something that came out of an Alan Walsh book I was reading this morning. And he said, he calls it compulsive ideation. So it's just our minds just kind of going free flow all the time, you know. He says it's the mind frothing at the mouth. he said, if we stated out loud every thought that came into our head, we likely, people would begin to wonder about us. We'd be locked up. We'd have problems. People would stay away from you, right? But somehow we managed to control that. But we still have the thoughts that are constantly going. We just don't spew it out of our mouths, right? And so we consider that normal, right? If I can keep a cork in it and it doesn't just all come spewing out. Now sometimes it spews out, but if it doesn't come spewing out all the time, then I'm considered relatively normal, And I think we talked a little bit about last week physical wellness, well-being. That before like the 60s or 70s. If you weren't sick, you were healthy, right? So healthy was the absence of disease. And since then, we've recognized that there's higher levels of wellness than that, that we can do things that actually improve our health, cardiovascular, diet, all that kind of stuff. So someone, I think, mentioned last week about some of the positive psychology things that we're beginning to hear now about. So, we've come to accept the fact that not spewing all that stuff out and just keeping it in our heads is normal. But there's actually another side to that continuum where we begin to control those thoughts and kind of start letting those kind of let go of those things too. So there's a high level of wellness from a mental standpoint, and it's just further down that continuum. So other thing I thought about, and I think this correlates pretty closely with the meditation and some of the neuroscience. There was a learning theory called Hebbian's learning theory, and it has to do with our neurological pathways that we set up in our brain. So as we use those over and over again, they become stronger and stronger. The way I read an article recently that described it pretty well. It said if you can imagine that we've got a herd of sheep, and we take them from pasture A to pasture B to pasture D, and we don't go to pasture C, we just go to those three. As we kind of move those sheep from one to the other, we begin to create a path in between those pastures, and the path then becomes what the sheep follow. So it becomes real easy to kind of build it. It becomes stronger and stronger and more obvious and more obvious. So when we're trying to change our thought processes, we're actually going to try to take our thinking into pasture D, and there's not been any path there for us to go. So it's a bit of a struggle, We have to kind of push ourselves into this different way of thinking. But the more we push ourselves into it, we can begin to develop that as our new habit of thought. And we can begin to let some of the other places, like anger, right? As we begin to kind of push ourselves into letting go, be a little patience would be one example. We can begin to kind of let that path of anger begin to kind of covers up and will kind of disappear over a period of time, all right? So we're creating new pathways, basically, literally in our brain, and trying to let some of the less healthy pathways go away, I guess, is the best way to explain it. People that are angry, they'll say, I can't control it. They say, I'm angry. That's just who I am, right? But they've practiced that thought process for years, since they were kids. And they've gotten very good at it, That's how they manage the world around them. So these emotions just arrive. It's kind of we're hardwired to think, again, the negative stuff. These things come up, and we go along with the thought process, and we just built up that habit of thinking. So the meditation is trying to help us recognize those thoughts as they arise, the negative ones, and begin to kind of slowly replace them with more positive things that will become new habits that we can begin to develop. And it's a slow process. You might not even hardly notice it happening. Like I said, I use the grocery store. That's my best place to practice, because everything happens there. I can get in the wrong line. It makes me impatient, and I've done pretty good with it. Now I get in the wrong line intentionally, just as I get a chance to kind of let go of all of this that makes me nuts, So yeah, you have to make your mind think about different things, and do that over and over again. So I don't know if I mentioned the little maze last week. Did I talk about that? Maybe not. Sorry. Sometimes I'll do this in classes. We have, those little mazes, the little paper, you kind of go from here and you try to get through it. We have one of those. It's, medium difficulty. We'll pass out to a class and let people do it. And, raise their hand when they're done. And it, might take a minute and a half, 2 minutes for them to do it. And we have them flip it over in the exact same maze on the other side. And that one might take half that length of time. And then we have yet another one, the exact same one. So by the time they've done it 4 times, they've got it down to just a few seconds. So that's actually a visual neuroplasticity. We've created this pathway in our brain that became easier and easier for us to do it. And it just becomes that way as you practice it more and more. So, any thoughts on that? Somebody's got something to have to say. Please. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Yes, sir. Wait, we got to wait for the microphone. For the folks at home, the folks that couldn't make it tonight are sitting at home listening.
I find that guided meditations like the one we just did really help me to go deeper than just my awareness when I'm meditating for concentration or whatnot. And is there a way to get that same level of depth on your own? Is that something that's cultivated? Or are there cues you can give yourself to kind of guide yourself
with the guided meditations? You mean?
As opposed to doing the guided meditations, like if you were just to meditate on your own.
How would you do a guided meditation on your own? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Or am I
like, basically. Is it something that like over time you'll be able to bring your consciousness to that deeper level that it seems more easily obtained for me when someone's kind of leading me through that pasture that I've never gone through?
Right. Yeah, so so with these meditations, once you kind of get the story down in your head, you'll be able to kind of just sit and go through that process and think about it. And so what some people will do is actually they'll record it. They'll read it themselves and record it and just play it back is one option. When I do like an analytical meditation, I'll have a book that I'm reading or something. And I mean, you can do this with people will do it with the Bible or whatever they want to, something that's inspirational. And you just try to kind of guide your mind through that thought process and try to get as deep into the thought as you can. So that's what we haven't done. We'll do some of those kind of meditations in the next week or so. But with this kind of a visualization thing, if you read it, and then at some point you'll be able to just sit down and think about it and kind of get your mind into it. The key is, I think, is when you sit down, that allow yourself to think, all right, I'm sitting here to do this meditation. And so then do that meditation and kind of stay with that a little bit. Did that answer your question?
So have an intention.
Yeah, because that's what makes it kind of more of a formal practice is when all right, I'm going to sit here and do this. Just like, you get your gym clothes on or whatever it is, I'm going to do that, There's benefit in doing it whenever you have an opportunity to, but this makes it kind of a formal thing and allows you to kind of go a little deeper. And you'll be able to go, we'll do a meditation on impermanence in the coming weeks, on change, and you'll be able to, after you've done that a few times, you'll be able to kind of really take it deeper and deeper and deeper, and then you'll reach nirvana. At some, with any luck, in this life or the next. So, any other thoughts or questions about that? Yes, sir.
The one thing I realized last week you said about going to the gym once and thinking you can you achieved everything you wanted to.
Yeah.
And I kind of equating this as like, I'm barely able to run to the end of the block right now.
Right.
I'm looking at you as potential being like a marathon runner.
No,
And-
no.
But
Okay,
just
yeah.
in my own mind,
Right.
but it's like, I keep, there's this level of impatience. It's like, I got to get there. But I have to get there like with, 2, 5, 6 minutes, not an hour kind of thing.
Right.
It's weird how impatient I am just even sitting here at times
Yeah.
with that. But then I have to remind myself, we're just getting to the end of the block today.
Right. That's
and then
right.
we're going to repeat that tomorrow and then repeat that again.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really is. I feel like I'm just starting on doing this stuff, and I know the folks that haven't done anything, I probably look like, wow, he's got something together. But I look at people that are deep into it, and I think I've got a long way to go. So and probably like running, it's you recognize it's the process that gives you the value. So you don't ever. You have accomplishments perhaps in running, where you finally do a marathon or a triathlon or whatever it is that your goals are. But at some point it's the running that becomes the reward in and of itself. And so you'll find out with meditation too. And you'll start playing around with that impatience. That's good stuff to kind of work with, because you recognize that I'm becoming impatient with this. And we're so used to just taking a pill and it's done, right? We want instant to wherever it is we're going, so we can go ahead and do the next thing. And this is really where we're reversing that whole process. We're trying to let go of that mental thinking that we have that level of control, because we really don't. We really don't. But you'll just keep chipping away at it. Don't give up at it, and you'll also have good days and bad days. You'll have days when wow, that I could just keep on sitting here, and now it's too bad I have to get up and go to work, and then you'll have days where it's like, this is going nowhere. So I'm just so distracted by something, just we'll call it a quits, and that's okay. Don't be discouraged by that, because that happens with exercise too. You have good days and bad days. But what'll happen is the amount of good days will increase, and then it'll reach the point where it's that's what makes it a good day, and you'll just kind of start falling into that habit, and then you've locked onto something that's really valuable. And the thing is that the percentage of people in the world that understand this are so small. When you start practicing this, and you've been practicing for a while, you think if everybody did this, all the world problems would go away. Most of them. Not all of them, but eventually, because it just is so life changing to kind of get involved with it. And so rejoice in the fact that you all came here tonight, because look around and the people that didn't make it, that again they'll look back and say, well, that was kind of a cool thing I did back in 2018 and in September or whatever. But if they haven't picked up the habit of doing that, then they're going to kind of miss out. So that's why I really encourage you to try to come to all the classes and try to really build a habit, because it'll make a big difference in your life. It really will. So, other thoughts? Ideas? I'm going to let you. We're going to break up in pairs and talk about a little bit about problems that are caused by negative mind and how responding to them differently might change things. How's that? Can you think of something that you can have a discussion with somebody else about? So we'll do that now. So yeah, think about when you had something that occurred that your mind went to the negative, and how maybe if it had gone differently, if you'd changed your thinking, it could have changed the outcome. Yeah, there's. Yeah, so think about something, think about something that happened today or the last couple of days where your mind went to a negative and it caused you to respond in a way that didn't cause pleasure for you, and how you might have changed your thought process to have changed that outcome. Does that make sense? I use the example of someone cutting you off on a highway. There's probably tons of examples you can think about, but does the question make sense? Okay. I don't remember who asked me to repeat it, but okay. Okay, how did everybody do? Y'all have good stuff? Lots of stuff, right? Anything anybody want to share? Anything like, oh, wow, that was really good? No? That's all right. You don't have to share anything. You share with the other person. But you're all able to come up with some stuff that if you change your way you thought about it or your perspective or something like that, it would make a big difference. And we'll have an exercise in a couple of weeks, I think, that an analytical meditation that will kind of go through that a little bit more. Might be next week. I don't know. I'll have to look ahead and see. So yeah, there's advantages and the disadvantages of finding things that are pleasurable outside of ourselves, outside of our head. Most of us are chasing after, most of the population, most everything is chasing after pleasures that are external to their mind, right? Things out there. And so things like money, friends, food, fame, there's a handful of things that we kind of seek. The worldly dharmas, I think, is a term that they use in Buddhism. And I'm supposed to know them. And we want stuff that makes us happy. We don't want to lose stuff that makes us unhappy, right? We want people to say good things about us that makes us happy. We don't want people to say bad things about us that make us unhappy. So by seeking these things outside, what they'll argue is that we'll always be disappointed because those things never really they'll never really create the level of pleasure that we're actually really seeking. They never satisfy us, If you think about that, you think about it like the next time you're going to buy something. And, I want to say, I don't sound negative to advertising and marketing because there might be advertising and marketing people in here, but, there's the ability to make that stuff attractive to us, right? If only I had this, then I'd be happy. And so in our heads, we kind of go through that. When I get this new fill in the blank, car, sofa, house, boyfriend, when I have this vacation, whatever case it may be, we anticipate and expect that that's going to cause that pleasure for us. But once we get it, watch what happens. It kind of drops off, right? So we kind of there's this anticipation, and they've done some studies with dopamine and stuff too, right? So we kind of get ramped up and get excited about doing something, the anticipation. But then once we kind of get what it is we're looking for, am I right here? Once we get it, it falls off, and now we're all of a sudden looking for the next thing to occur, right? And the things that we're afraid of are kind of the same way. We kind of have this fear going on with that. But once that's passed, then there's kind of the next thing that's going to happen to us that we begin worrying about. So the pleasures and things that we seek outside are not really going to create the kind of pleasure that we want. We replace what I'm calling fun and entertainment as we thinking that that's going to actually satisfy us. But there's always this kind of longing underneath. So we can begin through meditation, it begins to kind of free us of some of those expectations that we falsely lay on those things external to ourselves. And we can begin to start finding just more pleasure in just simple things that exist around us, paying attention to the flowers in the sky. It sounds kind of foo-foo, but we can start to just enjoy things moment to moment by letting go of some of those expectations that we have once we recognize. And this is part of the analytical meditations that we'll do too, as we start to start thinking about the next time you purchase something. And I'm not telling you not to buy it, but just think about what your mind does in that process and kind of observe it, because you can think about what your thoughts are, kind of what's going through your head, because you can kind of watch that process happen and recognize that that didn't really scratch the itch that I was thinking it was gonna. You start seeking the next one, and you'll never get there, right? Wherever there is, in the commercials they say you finally made it. But you'll never finally make it. There is no it. You know, once you get there, it's just a carrot on a stick that we're chasing on a treadmill. So, anyway, those things always disappoint us. So meditation, part of the meditation, as you practice this stuff, you can begin kind of analyzing those things external and ask. You know, just ask yourself. This is where the analytical meditation really pays off. Did that do what I was expecting it to do? We might have talked a little bit about savoring last week and eating food and just doing it more mindfully. And I was thinking, you know, I'll eat those little, like Hershey Kisses, those little Dove chocolate things, you know. You eat one of those, and I'll do some exercises where you'll pass one out. This is a classic Kabat-Zinn exercise with a raisin or a chocolate or something. And, you know, you unwrap it slowly, you smell it, you just kind of let it melt. I do this with the kids. You know, you just let it melt in your mouth, and you really just savor it. And usually if you do that, people will say, oh, you know, that was the best piece of chocolate I've ever had, and I don't really need another piece. But otherwise, I'm just eating them, and I'm eating one, and I'm thinking about the next one already, right? So it's real clear, like, this isn't going to satisfy me. It's just something to do, you know. So we have a lot of eating issues too that kind of stem on just our ability to kind of not get satisfied with things. So I won't go down that path. My wife does mindful eating classes, so you know, there's a whole field of that as well, just being more aware of what you're putting in your mouth, thinking about it as you eat it, and savoring it, slowing down, enjoying it. We're just not used to doing that. That's just not our mode. We've got to eat this meal so we can go on and do the next thing that'll get us closer to whatever it is we're trying to get to, you know. So. Thoughts? Nope, that's enough. Yes, please. Yeah.
Does your wife have classes?
She teaches,
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's right. She asked if my wife teaches a class here. She does Buddhism in a nutshell. There's a lot of people that teach this class. So there's a handful of us that do Meditation 101. And I'd encourage you to take it more than once. You know, you'll get, Jill does, I've sit in on some of the other classes. They're all real good. I always learn something when I sit in somebody else's class. So there's Meditation 101 and there's Buddhism in a nutshell. And they're both five-week sessions like this. So Karen teaches the Buddhism in a nutshell class. And then there's Discovering Buddhism. If you want to go further in this, I mean, Buddhism is not, you know, I think it's mistakenly classified as a religion because there's really no other place to put it. It is science, psychology, and philosophy, the combination of those three things, with a lot of ritual. But the ritual has a psychological emphasis to it when you get deep enough into it. You know, all of this stuff has a purpose if you start really studying it a little deeper. But you know, the Dalai Lama, when asked, you know, what if science disproved, his focus was, they were having a discussion with, who was the guy, the billions and billions, you know, the scientist? Yeah, Carl Sagan, thank you. He was interviewing, Carl Sagan was interviewing him, and Carl Sagan said, asked, he said, His Holiness, what if science disproves rebirth, reincarnation, which is a Buddhist thought, right? Belief. And the Dalai Lama just thought for a moment, and he said, well, then we'd have to change our religion, you know? Because it never, they say if science ever disproves any of this, then you have to go with the science, you know? But then he turned around and said, so how would you conduct this experiment, Dr. Sagan? And he didn't know the answer to that one, but you know, you threw it right back at him. So, you know, it really is. There's nothing that generally that will contradict what they teach you in Buddhism. And if they do, they tell you just put it aside. You know, don't throw it out. Put it aside because it may make sense later on down the road. But it's all of these teachings up there, all 84,000 teachings. Those are all books that line this thing. You can see just the little sides. They're like sheets. The purpose is to work on your mind. It's all just basically training your mind to be happy, which is really what it all boils down to. So I kind of really veered off from does your wife teach a class here, but yeah, I'm sorry. I'm trying to think of how did I end up there. See what happens? How did I end up there by that question? So there was kind of a path. Yeah, I could get myself back there. So, all right. There's one more meditation I want to kind of take you through. It's called 9-round breathing, and we'll kind of run through this quickly. This is also one of your handouts too. So I'll explain it real briefly how we're going to do this, and that way you kind of know where it's going. So we're going to start out. We're going to imagine there's 3 channels, kind of like the size of soda straws. And there's a central one that starts right between our eyebrows, curves along our skull, and comes down our spine and ends just below our navel. And then there's one on the right side that starts at the right nostril and kind of follows the same path right next to it, and one on the left side that follows the left nostril and follows it. So there's 3 channels, a central and one on either side. And with the 9-round breathing, what we're going to do is we'll start out with closing our left nostril and inhaling through the right. And as you inhale, imagine pure light going in, and picture it going in and traveling around your body and going to all the different cells. And then you're going to block up the right side and exhale through the left channel. And that's going to dispel all the negativities like soot, right? It all kind of comes out like smoke, and it'll dissipate into the universe. And then we're going to do that 3 times, in through the right, out through the left. And then we're going to switch. We're going to do in through the left, out through the right 3 times. And then 3 times in both channels, and exhale through both channels. We'll do that 3 times. And again, as you inhale, picture this kind of clear light going in. Try to visualize that as vividly as you can, and this soot and smoke kind of coming out, the negativities, and dissipating. Okay, so get yourself in your meditation position. Notice how your back end is, or your feet on the floor. Back straight, head up, chin down. Your hands comfortable, eyes closed, and the tongue at the roof of your mouth. And take a few breaths in and out to just kind of let go of everything. And then imagine those 3 channels, the central one starting at your eyebrow and running back across the top of your head down to below your navel. The right one starts at the right nostril and follows the same path. And the left one, left nostril following the same path. And they all join together at the bottom. So holding your left nostril closed, inhale through the right, and then close off the right and exhale through the left. We'll do that 3 times. Imagining clear light going in, negativities coming out. And once you've done that 3 times, switch and inhale through the left and exhale through the right. And then inhale through both and exhale through both. And as the white purity, the light comes in, it goes to all your cells. And as the negativities leave, they dissipate. And then just continue breathing in and out when you finish. How'd you like that? Eh. Thumbs up. That's good, good, good. All right. A lot of people like that one. Some people don't like that one so well. And it's actually a good meditation if you have difficulty like sitting down and concentrating right away. That a lot of folks will do a set of 9-round breathing to just kind of let go of everything and clarify, because it's a bit of a visualization there that we start out with, and it gets your mind focused, and then you can move into one of the other meditations on top of that. So play around with that a little bit. And again, all of these are things that you can experiment with. We'll kind of just brush the tip of the iceberg here, but there are lots of different types of meditations that we can begin doing. That, you know, you've begun to develop the skill. At least you know how to begin doing this stuff, that you can start playing with some different things, and just exploring a little bit. So, you know, and sometimes bad stuff will show up, and I don't mean to discourage anybody or whatever. It's like one of those snow globes, right? When they settle down, there's actually stuff in there that we can't see when it's all shook up. And so when you begin to let your mind settle, thoughts and emotions may pop up that you've kind of kept suppressed, or you know, you don't want to think about or whatever. And you can kind of take them a little bit at a time. You know, you can decide how much you want to see of that stuff or whatever, and kind of work through it. There's a book out there, kind of Becoming Your Own Therapist, and that's kind of the idea, is that you can begin kind of exploring your own mind a little bit. You know, not to take away from the fact that we still need professionals, but you know, we can begin. You can begin kind of exploring around in an area that you may not have ever explored around much before. So, all right. Any other questions before we call it a night? We've got a pending storm. You might all be stuck at home with opportunities to meditate, nothing else to do, right? Those folks that didn't come are going to be thinking, what am I going to do, you know? And now you'll know what to do. So, yeah. And if you have a chance, you know, if you're at home, stuck at home, you know, do 10 little 5-minute sessions if you can, or whatever, you know. Don't try to sit for 2 hours in your first opportunity. But try to, you know, do multiple little ones and play around with different times and stuff like that. So, what else are you going to do, right? And notice how, you know, what the water temperature feels like if you have to take a cold shower. So, all right, if there's no other questions, 8:28, we'll dedicate all this. You know, think about you did this for the benefit of yourself and those people around you. And hope to see you all back next week. Next week, Tuesday, I don't know, I guess we'll just kind of see what happens, you know, whether the center's open or not. I think, Chris, they put something on the webpage if classes get canceled or postponed, so you can kind of keep an eye there and see what's going on. So, yes, ma'am.
Did you say the handouts are on the website?
They are. The handouts are on the website, so they're all PDFs that you should be able to download. So. And there's my, they gave me an email address. I'm hoping it works. But, you know, feel free to send me an email, or if you have questions or something like that. Just let me know who you are from the class, you know, and then I'll be happy to chat or respond or call or whatever. So
just a quick question. So
yeah.
How long do you meditate? Do you do it every day, and how long do you meditate?
Not long enough.
Not long
Yeah,
enough.
no, I try to do it every day. Now, I don't always have that opportunity, and I notice on days when I don't. I get up painfully early. I usually get up about 4:30, and I try to be sitting on my cushion by around 5, and I'll sit there till usually about 6:30, so about an hour and a half. But it's not just, I'm not just sitting there breathing for an hour and a half. I'm usually read something, you know, I'll do some focus meditations. I'll read something, you know, I'll work through different books, read a paragraph, and then I'll just sit with that for a while. Because the idea is to try to really delve deep into some of this stuff and just change my thought processes a little bit. And I'm trying to incorporate some in the evenings and afternoons, and that's going with varying degrees of success. But I think it'd be beneficial if I did that. So, but we'll see. We were looking after a monk who was up in the mountains north of Asheville. That's been on a 3-year retreat, silent retreat. So, that would be my next goal, would be able to do something a little bit longer. So he's been kind of holed up in his cabin for 3 years. We drop food off to him, out in a bucket he keeps out in the back porch. And I've talked to him actually since he's finished with his, he got his iPhone reactivated and he's kind of getting back into the swing of things. But
Is he allowed to talk to himself?
yeah, I bet he talked to himself a lot. He texted a little bit, so I knew you probably when the silence thing came about, you didn't have the texting opportunities. So he'd keep in touch. He'd tell me what he wanted from Trader Joe's or Whole Foods. He'd send me a little list of things, But so yeah, and there's people. I talked to someone who knew a couple that are on lifelong retreat. They just decided they're in Colorado somewhere. They come out twice a year to visit family, and they go back into their house. They plan on just dying there on that mountain somewhere, I suppose. I don't know. That'd be cool. Yeah. So, all right. Thank you all. You all take care. See you maybe next week. With any luck, we'll see you all next week.